Started off as a PG podcast, but then Devin just kept on dropping shits and fucks, and started off as a PG podcast, but then Devin just kept on dropping shits and fucks, and
I'm just trying to figure out what's in her mouth.
I just want to see him interview Francesco Accoli.
No, he's a good human being, is what he would say about himself, I'm sure.
Who's hosting this thing?
Yeah. Take charge, Kevin, would you? Jesus.
First time we ever met those guys. That was the major drunken pub argument.
I think you guys are the worst.
I'm gonna have to probably watch some Canucks hockey, unfortunately.
Just making friends left, right, and center, and probably some enemies as well.
Tell him to shut up. He needs to hear that every once in a while.
Well, off to a good start.
All right. We are live.
It's okay to talk when it goes live.
Good morning. Welcome, everyone, to the Hockey Podcast. You are watch us on Facebook.com, the Hockey Podcast, YouTube.com, the Hockey Podcast. We are live from various areas of British Columbia and Alberta. You can, of course, follow us on Twitter at podcast_hockey. Also, as I said, subscribe on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, where we're getting a little bit closer to Mario Lemieux numbers, the number Mario Lemieux. We have hit goal number 60 for subscribers. So we thank you for that. Big growth the last couple of weeks. And then you can subscribe to wherever you get podcasts. The audio will be up shortly on our after the podcast is aired. Good morning, Tyler. How are you?
Good morning, Kevin. Good morning, Devin and Sean. We had a few weeks of normal winter weather pattern for February. We're back to the rainy slop now. So not much fun outside these days, but yeah, I'm good.
We had a moment of sun here on Tuesday, and then it lasted.
Yeah.
It really was. Sean in the new comfortable chair, looks all casual.
This chair is so much better than the IKEA bar chairs that I was sitting on for the at the counter in the kitchen. So I'm much happier now.
There you go. And Devin representing the Leafs in the outer shells representing the Leafs, in the inner shells representing the Flames.
Yes, it's not a good morning. It's a morning, Kevin, as far as the Flames go, for sure. And Sean's talking about these IKEA chairs, these fucking things right here. Yeah. I'm sitting on them. It's been a rough couple of days here being a Leafs fan, but being a Flames fan, being a Leafs fan is completely different. And it's sunshines, rainbows, lollipops, all that fun stuff.
Yeah. It's very much like the world is your oyster if you're a Leafs fan, and we're just living in it. And for the Flames fan, it's a fascinating narrative. Good question in the comments. We'll get to that in a second. We will be previewing the Jets and the Canucks, by the way, a little bit later on. We'll talk about that. But we're going to start with the Flames, the tire fire that is. I was going to put. I had a pun in my head. I can't even remember it now. I was going to put for the title, but I decided to not go it. But the heat is definitely on the Flames. And it's funny to me because in some cases being here in Canucks world and watching and following two teams a little bit closer than anything else, it's fascinating to see the narrative that went through Vancouver, as now the narrative is almost as flipped and actually have gone through Flame. We're going to have almost the same conversation, but about a different hockey team. But this has not been a good week. This was a disaster. 14-3, they've been outscored the last 3 games. They got swept in the Battle of Alberta. They lost 7-1 last night to the Edmonton Oilers, and Connor McDavid was Connor McDavid. He did he had 5 points. And Jacob Markstrom allowed 5 goals on 15 shots. It just wasn't a good look. And Elliot Friedman said this last night during the postgame show Hockey Night in Canada, it almost feels like something is going to happen. The team is waiting for something to happen. Even Pat Steinberg on overtime last night says said, and he's not being an insider. He says, I have my phone around me today, even though this is a day off, because he could expect something to happen. So we have a poll up. Sean, do you have the poll? It's one of 3 polls. We're polls. We've got so many polls. Like, yeah.
It's a pole dance.
It's a pole dance, and I'm not.
Where are we going?
Oh my god.
Graphics. Here we go. Okay.
Yes. So
not too graphic though.
We go to graphics. What big move will the Flames do next team with this team struggling? So, fire Brad Treliving, fire Jeff Ward, blockbuster trade, captaincy change. And right now, and please vote, it's we have right now fire Jeff Ward leading the way with 50%, captaincy change 25%, blockbuster trade 17.9%, fire Brad Treliving 7.1. I'm going to allow me to go through these 4, and I'm going to tell you after where I voted, and then we'll hear everyone else. I just don't see how you fire Brad. You can't fire Brad Treliving now, simply because it's that to me looks like an off-season move if you're going to do it. I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm a Treliving fan, but realistically, with everything going on, I just don't see that being a current mid-season move. Jeff Ward. One of the things I could see, and I'll just throw this out there as an out-of-the-box idea, when Bill Peters was left, Craig Conroy coached the team for, I want to say 1 game at least. If you're making a coaching change, if you have someone in mind, you need a quarantine, it may not hurt that you have Craig Conroy do a couple of games, change the mood of the team. I'm just bringing that up as an idea. Blockbuster trade. I think that's really hard right now to do a big blockbuster trade with everything going on. So I voted captaincy change, the controversial one. And then we'll hear from Devin. I just think it's a harsh move, but this seems to me coming down to leadership in a lot of ways. And it may be, we talked about this on Wednesday when you listen, by the way, our midweek intermission where we cover the news up to that point. It might be the best thing to do. It might be the transition time, and it may open the door for a team to maybe look at acquiring a 37-year-old that's trying to get a Stanley Cup, which may not happen here for him in Calgary. So I'm going to start with Devin. We'll go to Tyler and Sean, just kind of hear where you're at. But my vote, controversially, was captaincy change. I could see that happen.
That was mine as well, Kev. Going down the list there, I don't see a GM change happening within this year. Firing Jeff Ward, same thing. Not really. You can do it. It's just who you're bringing in is my question, especially with ownership not the rumor is the ownership doesn't want to pay top end coaches. So if you're going to do that, you better bring in someone fucking big like that. That's 100% sure. Blockbuster trade, I could see that. But yeah, captaincy change in my mind is number one. Then the reason why is the past 5 to 6 years has been the same leadership group of Giordano, Backlund, and up and coming stars of Monahan and Gaudreau, and it just seems like they've tried everything other than fire Brad Treliving. They had 3 different coaches, and I just always come back to, okay, who's leading this group other than the coach? We have 24 players on a roster, and if you're not going to listen to the coach, you better damn well listen to your captain, because your captain will always bite your head off if you aren't pulling the chain in the right direction, and he should, in my mind. But if there needs to be a change, in my mind, it has to be captaincy. It's just the same shit over and over again. So yeah, I'm sorry, Gio, your time has passed. The only thing, though, I guess would be, who are you gonna put in as captain? And I say no one. I say leave the captaincy until somebody shows themselves that they are captain worthy, and rotate 4As.
Yeah, to me, that's another move that would come in the offseason. I can't think of a scenario off the top of my head where they've stripped the captaincy in the middle of the season and that player remain on the team. So I think that's very unlikely. Although the points that Devin made about the whole group of them being the same over the last number of years is a valuable point. That's something that's been a constant there. There's been changes in coaching. There's been changes to the roster. I just think that that's a move that is just kind of trying to cover for the fact that the team's just, it's a little bit like the Canucks. It's just a lot of meh on the team. There's some good players. There's not a lot of top-end superstar power there. But it's just a little bit of meh, and they don't seem to be able to take that step forward. I've used the phrase "spinning the wheels in the sand" with the Flames in the past, and it feels like that's happening again. It's not horrible, but they're not getting wins right now, and we feel that in other places as well. But it's been kind of a pattern for a while here now with the Flames for a few years, and in a lot of cases they'll make the playoffs, but really not make a lot of noise once they get there. Something has to change to move forward, but I think it's a bigger roster changes is probably going to have more of an impact than a change in captaincy. I mean, from what I can tell, I'm not in the market, but from what I can tell, Mark Giordano is well respected there and across the league, and I don't know. I think that's a little bit of a reach to say that that's gonna fix a lot of the issues facing the Calgary Flames. I think anything immediate would be a coaching change. Jeff Ward was kind of put in by necessity after the situation with Bill Peters, and I think they kind of like that option going forward as opposed to some other unknown. But Trent. And as far as True Living goes, that's not going to happen mid-season either.
Yeah, for me, the way I look at it is under the current situations, if you fire Jeff Ward, who are you bringing in? If you're bringing that person in, are you having them quarantined before you make the move with Jeff Ward? Are you going with an interim coach until that person has gone through the 2-week quarantine or 1-week quarantine that it will be necessary? And will that limbo period hurt the Flames more? I think a captaincy change is an off-season move as well. I think that's something that you need to be able to have a good discussion about. You can't be making that a distraction in the middle of the season when you're trying to get back on track. So I don't think that's an option as well. I honestly think a GM change is easier than a lot of people think. That is definitely a job that you can do while you're doing the 2-week quarantine. You can definitely have the person sitting in their hotel room and just go over things, talk with everyone, figure shit out. It is a job that can be done via quarantine situations.
And we have seen one example of that, obviously, in Pittsburgh, forced by resignation, but it has happened this year, so there is an example to follow.
And then the other option is a blockbuster trade, and you're still going to have the quarantine issues and everything like that. But I do think that's the one that will wake this team up more than anything else. A GM change at this point, I think will have a longer term positive effect if you get the right person in. But short term, you're still going to have players doing the same thing they're doing now. Coaching, again, it just comes down to if you can get someone in who needs a bare minimum quarantine, then do it. And then, as Kevin said, you've got Craig Conroy who can fill in for a game or two if need be. But for me, I think the big thing is as Devin mentioned, it's been so long with this leadership and core group. To borrow something from one of our quote unquote favorite coaches out there, John Tortorella, during his time in Vancouver, this team is stale. and a change is needed. And the best way to make that change is a big trade, even if you have to wait 2 weeks for a player who you've acquired from American team to come in. Because you make that change. Say you do make a trade and you trade Johnny Gaudreau or a Sean Monahan. That shakes up that locker room a lot more than a new GM would, a new coach would, and it doesn't shake up it doesn't create as big a distraction as changing the captaincy would midseason. So,
like if we're going to suggest changing general managers, but not move a piece of the level of Monahan, Gaudreau, Sam Bennett, whatever names you want to pick off the top of the list there, then you haven't really changed anything.
No, and when you really think about it, if you're looking for short-term change, a coach would actually make more sense with the track record of this with this group, because whenever they have a coaching change, they play well, and then if somehow it seems like they lose. The coach loses the room within a year. So if they're looking for a change, then that'll be beneficial for this year. That would be it. The reason why I say a captaincy change is to shake up that room and be like, put the onus on the players. The players are out there playing the game. They need to be held accountable to some degree. And if Gio gets the boot for the captaincy, and if he's that well respected within that group, you think that, the players would be like, oh, fuck, well, that's on us. It's maybe not even on Gio. Maybe it's like if you watched it down in San Jose with Joe Thornton and Patrick Marleau, it kind of created a bit of a tension between the players and upper management, but it was a bit of a fuck you, which I think that's what they need.
Yeah, that also happened in the offseason a lot, and they were able to nip it in the butt at training camp. And I think just trying to do that in the middle of the season when you're already reeling, I think it's just it creates too much of a shitstorm. And I think you can make the same shock value disruption to that locker room with a big trade, and you can set yourself up long term potentially better than to rock that locker room to the core and maybe you create divisions that aren't necessarily there now when you do that mid-season.
Yeah, and Devin, you suggested that the alternative, if you were to make that change mid-season, would be to go without a captain. I mean, if your feeling is that there's a lack of leadership, and then you're going to say we're not having a captain, yes, there might be that shock value to the dressing room to get people to wake up, but I think that's a huge gamble to make that move in season. That's my opinion. And then in regards to Thornton and Marleau, I mean, what we don't really know, how that discussion went. I mean, I think in the case of Joe Thornton, he might not have minded the idea of having a little pressure taken off. I mean, that move occurred after giving up a 3-0 series lead and collapsing against the Kings, and I can't forget the press conference afterwards in the dressing room. He hadn't taken any of his gear off. He was just swarmed by people. He was absolutely crushed, devastated, didn't have answers. Maybe he reflected on that later and thought, maybe it wasn't a bad thing to let somebody else have a turn at it. So, again, it's an off-season thing that they did, and they reached a Stanley Cup final after that. So it turned out to be the correct move, I think. Sorry, Kev, before you jump in, I just want to solidify my thought there. My reasoning behind doing that is that so that it's on everybody, so that everybody can hopefully come together and play as a fucking team instead of playing like a bunch of individuals. And that's what I feel like what's happening right now. And it's just, to me, that would make the most sense. And I mean, I've been told by people that my thought process is completely wonky, but doesn't mean that it can't happen.
For me, by the way, this comment is great. If Berkey heard you guys talking about the captaincy from Giroux, he would go, Don Cherry on your asses. I don't care. But thank you for the comment. I love that you're back.
Yeah, that is a great comment.
That's a great comment. I think this is, from the player's perspective, there has been some crutches that they have leaned on for years. They've leaned on the fact that certain players have gotten are easily blamable, like Matthew Tkachuk. He takes a lot of the spotlight away. Mark Giordano takes a lot of that spotlight away. This year, for the most part, 99.98% of the time, Jacob Markstrom has saved your butt. So I think one of the things that even the blockbuster trade or a captaincy can do is it needs to remove some crutches from the players, and it starts saying, okay, if we have got to do this, like all of us have got to do this, and not rely on certain people to get yes, Matthew Tkachuk is great at dragging the team into the battle, but there needs to be more than Matthew Tkachuk to drag the team into the battle. Everybody should be battling in some way, shape, or form. It seems to me that taking away some of these things is going to allow some of these players to step up a little bit more. I think one of the themes that I'm taking away from the Flames Oilers series, sorry, Eric Francis, the Oilers' depth outshone the Flames' depth in this series. And I'm not saying that the Oilers are great, but I can't think of a guy in the bottom six for the Flames that really stood out at all to me. Maybe Sam Bennett, because he got into a fight last night and took a penalty. But to me, the Haas's, the Jujhar Kharas, the Alex Chasons, even the James Neal, I thought outperformed the bottom six for the Flames. And I just think that there's so many crutches on this team that we can rely on someone else that will get the job done for us. Taking some of that away, either it be a captaincy or a blockbuster trade, might actually unify this team and put this team together, because it might need to be an us versus the world.
You mentioned depth, Kevin. We saw earlier in the year with the Canucks, when the top players were not scoring, the team wasn't winning because there wasn't much else to sort of make up the shortfall. And I think that's what we're seeing with the Flames right now. I mean, if it's been well discussed, Matthew Tkachuk's been pretty quiet lately, ever since the Jake Muzzin incident, really. And then we've talked, it seems like for years now, about Johnny Gaudreau and, with his visibility. I don't think he's been completely invisible in the games I've seen, but, there's always more to be desired there, I would think. And, go down the list from there. If the top guys are not producing, you're going to struggle to win. And then compound that with some goaltending struggles. I mean, Jacob Markstrom is just showing what we've seen in Vancouver in the past. If he's overworked, he starts to struggle. He starts making poor decisions coming out of the net. I believe it is the first time in his career, I thought I heard on the broadcast last night, that he's been pulled in consecutive starts. So that's obviously concerning, but that's not something that's going to continue long term. If he gets a little practice time, he'll snap out of it. We've seen that before. So there's that. And then I just wanted to make one other point. When you have a defenseman who's a captain, it's I think a little more difficult for the player to just take the team on the back and do it on the ice. I mean, defensemen don't have the same goal scoring opportunities that a forward would have. So, to be fair to Gio, I think that's, it's difficult for him. But if he's not one of the raw types in the dressing room, and that's what the team needs, then, come the off season, there's a worthwhile discussion there about whether they've got the right guy.
Well, the reason why he's captain is because, yes, he has leadership qualities. He's always first in fitness every year. And he works his ass off, and that's what made his career, is that he's a hard worker. And we discussed this on the midweek, that he isn't up to that standard anymore. He doesn't have that same step. He doesn't have that. Father Time is undefeated, and it's finally caught up to him. So he's a lead by example, and he's not doing that right now. He's trying to do too much, and the combat that with the lack of foot speed, then it just doesn't work out that well. It hasn't.
Father Time isn't undefeated. Tom Brady. Just saying. I'm just saying. Father Time has not defeated Tom Brady yet. That's the only one. I
mean, to use a hockey example, I mean, Zdeno Chara. I know it's weird seeing him not in a Boston Bruins uniform, but there's a long time captain defenseman with a great team, and you know,
But Chara is not the player he used to be.
No.
He's a great bottom pair defenseman who brings leadership. Guess who
his
should be
presence
that?
is still very strong though, right? Like not physically present, but just more in terms of the leadership impact with the team and dressing room, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that's what Gio should be at this point in his career. He should be your overqualified bottom pair defenseman who brings a lot of leadership to the table. Unfortunately, they do not. They're still waiting for someone else to step up on that left side. Whether it's Valimaki, whether it's Connor Mackey, whether it's Nestorov, whether it's Shillington, someone needs to step up and take that ice time away from Giordano. Again, Kevin talked about the parallel universes or the same talking points that we have had about the Canucks this season we are now talking about the using exactly the same ones for the Flames. Edler, Giordano are in the same spot, other than Edler being an assistant, not the actual captain. They're in the same spot. They should be a bottom pair defenseman who you use to help prop up a younger defenseman who's still getting their feet wet in this league, and then you find a way to fill and they add the leadership. And relying on them for a top four role is why there's been struggles defensively for both teams.
Yeah, they maybe are getting the benefit of the doubt for historical purposes, if you want to put it that way. I mean, Gio's been there since when, like 07, around that time?
Yeah, right around there.
Yeah.
So with all this discussion, would you guys think that multiple things would happen along that poll? You think that there could be two things, like a coaching change and a blockbuster?
Are we talking mid-season?
Right now.
Oh.
I'll say this. I think if the Flames don't come away with an over 500 record from the East, I think Ward is done. I think that there's a high chance that Ward is done, and I think that there's a possibility of a trade. I think it's hard to do, but Nashville's made it known as an example that everybody is available except a couple. If you're like that runway, we've talked hey, stop me if you've heard this before. The runway we're running out of runway here. Heard that before? Yes, they're running out of runway here in Calgary too. So at some point, if you don't come out more than a 500 record, you might have to start looking at being a seller in the deadline. The only thing that's holding that possibly back is I think the Montreal Canadiens are fading, but I just don't know how far down they're fading down the path here. That's my question. But, I
don't think the Habs are fading as much as some people are trying to make it out to be.
No, that's the question.
They're having a little bit of puck luck go against them for the last little bit. So they're still playing. The process with that team is still there. Yeah. So do not expect them to fade more than they have right now.
But reasonably at this particular point, is it a reasonable expectation that the Flames would finish higher than fourth?
Higher? No.
Yes.
Reasonable? Maybe. Possible. Definitely possible. You're just 4 points back of Winnipeg right now. Winnipeg has a game in hand. It is definitely possible, but reasonable? I think no.
Yeah, I mean, we said last week, looked at the standings. I mean, I still think the top three is going to be some combination of Toronto, Montreal, and Edmonton. So, yeah, fourth probably, but third is possible. Just going back to the earlier question, would changes happen? What would prompt changes? I mean, another 7-1 in the next week here could be it. But again. This is an unusual season, unusual times, difficult to make changes. I imagine there's going to be a lot of patience exercised here, and they'll want to see how they do against Ottawa. You know, if they're struggling against Ottawa the next turn through that matchup, then I think definitely you'll see some changes.
Yeah, because you got Toronto and Ottawa this week. Sorry, who was talking? Someone?
Oh yeah, I was just I think with all like what Kev said about Steinberg saying that there are changes going to happen, or that they're trying to make changes happen. To me, that screams trade. What I've been saying is what I think that should happen, but I think what will happen is a trade.
And that's where I'm at. I think the right move, and we've discussed this multiple options here, including over multiple podcasts, because we started with is it time that we start putting Brad Treliving on the hot seat? I think that's the right move. I think you find a replacement for Brad Treliving, and you see what that person can do, because I know, Devin, you're definitely a supporter of Brad Treliving, but as you said, this is the same shit over and over again. And this is Brad Treliving's team. I think it's time to get a new voice in there and find someone who can maybe try and build this team slightly differently and make those trades. Because if you're going to roll, if a big trade happens, I think Brad Treliving is going to survive until at least the middle of next season, because you're not going to let him make drastic open heart surgery on this team when you're not sold on him being the long-term solution at GM. So if a trade is happening, then Brad's seat isn't as hot as it should be, in my opinion.
The other thing I'd want to bring up here, and we last week we talked quite a bit about Francesco Aquilini, but where's Flames ownership at with all of this? I mean, there never seems to be a whole lot of urgency to push the team from middling to contender status. They seem satisfied with, what we've seen. There doesn't seem, we never hear anything about ownership being impatient. So we have all this discussion, but I think it's important to consider where ownership's at on all of this as well.
That is one thing that they are completely missing is that vocalness from ownership, that passion from ownership. And the only time that ownership has been heard in some way, shape, or form was I'm going to bring this up again. Sorry, I know it's a sore spot, but they spoke through Ken King, God rest his soul, rest in peace, through an arena deal when they wanted taxpayer money. But in terms of where they are in terms of the Flames and how they're playing, nothing. And that's I don't know. I think that Tyler, that's a great point. That has not been talked about enough. Like, I'm not saying that you need to be a Francesco Aquilini and tweet, but for the love of God, someone from that ownership, there's 902 of them. One of them can speak, right?
Yeah. Well,
like,
I just if you're a player and you get the feeling from ownership that the commitment to winning isn't there, I mean, you're gonna have this, like,
yeah.
So, but I don't know. I don't know what their feelings are. We don't hear much about them. Maybe there is strong commitment there, and I'm just kind of making a bigger deal out of it than it is. But that should be part of the discussion, I think.
It's part of the narrative.
Yeah.
Though it's part of what that narrative is where's Flames ownership and the apathy that comes from it. I think that this is part of the apathy that you've seen within Flames fans. I think that they've generated a really apathetic culture.
Yeah. It does start from the top down, and if there's no urgency from the top, then there's no urgency for Brad Treliving to do anything. There's no urgency to have that open heart surgery and really get down to the nitty gritty of what is happening within this organization, whether it's from the ownership down to the players.
Yeah.
The Flames ownership are a little bit more old school. They're going to let whoever they've got as hockey ops president or GM, depending on how the structure they have at the time, do most of the talking. That's why they had Ken King, and they haven't found someone to replace him in terms of talking to the public. And I do think it's something that needs to be part of the conversation, but not all owners are going to be as fingers in the pie as the Aquilinis are, and as vocal as they are, even if it is just the corporate tweeting that Francesco does from time to time. So I really liked the passion, the emotion, the frustration that Treliving showed when he was on 960 talking with Pat Steinberg. I think you need that, because we talked about it. The Flames lack emotion. It feels like they lack passion. I know that's not the case, because I know Markstrom's in that room, and anyone who knows Markstrom knows he's passionate and will call himself out, will call other people out. He does not he wants to win. Chris Tanev has a very understated passion, and I think that might be the problem right now in that room, is there's a lot of understated passion, and anytime you show overt passion, aka Matthew Tkachuk, you get shunned for it. You get your hand slapped, and I don't think that's the right approach, because you need to show passion. You need to show your give a damn meter needs to be high. Your Wolfpack mentality needs to be through the roof. We'll get into this when we start talking about the Canucks, but the fact that they all went in there, and even at the detriment of getting a power play, even though the game was pretty much over, going in to protect Niels Hoglander, and even if it doesn't matter who it is. Even if it is Matthew Tkachuk over and over and over and over again, you need to go in and show that whoever it is that you're in this with them. You need to go in there and show the other team that it's us versus the world. There is no issues with this locker room. If someone goes in and starts messing with your teammate, you go in there and start messing with them. That is something that has been missing with this Flames team for years, and it's something that they need to fix if they're going to be able to take it to the next level.
Let me add to this, because I think you're making a great point, and I want to add to it, because again, being involved in two different markets has had this, and it's maybe dangerous to compare, but I'll bring it up. Jason Botchford, God rest his soul as well. We need an army. And I think that's unified Canuck Twitter. That was like, let's go. And Friday night, when Hoglander was getting abused by Derek Forbort, Canuck Twitter went raging. It went a raging. It was an angry Canuck Twitter.
Yeah. I mean, let's overreact it maybe a little, but
you know what? That was a fan base that said, "Fuck you, leave Hoglander alone." You don't see that in Calgary. You don't see that. He's like, "Oh yeah, we lost." Blake Tahoe, eh?
Yeah. Well, I mean, to bring up our experience when we all got together in Calgary a couple of Decembers ago. I mean, we went to that game and
in the before times, and we were sitting up in the stratosphere there. But it was 3-0 fairly early for the Canucks. Goaltender change, and I mean, did we hear even any boos from the Calgary crowd? Like, it was a pretty apathetic feeling in the building, I thought. No, it's just one game, but didn't seem that hostile to me.
It's never hostile in there. Like, the only time I've only been there a couple times where it's been the fans have been upset with the effort and the amount of accountability between not even just the fans. Like, once again, we're talking about the fucking players. We're talking about the players and what the fuck they're doing. They don't give a shit. They don't care.
Devin,
but there also doesn't seem to be any pressure on them to do anything about it.
Well, the fans don't need to be fans and fandom, yes, you can be passionate. Yes, you can yell at them. But at the end of the fucking day, you're fucking professionals. You shouldn't have to have the fans on your fucking back. You should have the respect, enough respect within yourself and for your fellow teammates to give a fuck. And right now they're not. And the thing that drives me fucking insane is the fact that Matthew Tkachuk got told to tone it back. That's 100% what happened. And that is complete and utter bullshit. And that is on the players, because that was a players only meeting after the puck got flicked at Tkachuk from Muzzin. And once again, who's talking in that? the fucking leaders of that locker room. And I guess talking it out with you guys has made me be like, fucking trade him. Trade everybody.
Yeah.
Let's go. God.
Well, I mean, looking at Gio and Monahan and Backlund, I mean, you could see that their style of how they conduct themselves is not congruent with Matthew Tkachuk, and that they would maybe say tone it down, but tone it down doesn't mean be something else. You just don't want craziness every night.
You started to see a little bit of the old Matt the Rat show back up at the beginning of last game, but then the wheels fell off, and at that point, it doesn't, like, you're just creating more shit that you can't really do anything with if you're going to continue to act like he should be in those games. So it's everyone, and I completely understand why the thought process of a captaincy change is going through both Kevin and Devin's minds. I think something like that needs to be done have the exact right process and timing to be effective, and not absolutely destroy your locker room. But at some point, when is the time to make that move and use the nuclear option that is?
Well,
I think you need to that is something they need to look at in the offseason for sure. But there's still 1 to 2 moves I think you make before that. I think you need to make a big trade, shake him up, and say wake the fuck up, or you do fire the GM or the coach. The coach. There could be 3 moves that happen before that captaincy is even talked about. If the fact that, like, do you really think that Treliving and Jeff Ward are going to remove the captaincy from Giordano? No, they're not.
No.
So the whole for me, that's why I think there's at least 2 moves that are going to happen before that's even discussed. And one of the moves that needs to happen before that is discussed is to get some fresh eyes in this organization at coach and or GM.
How embarrassed would they be? Because you're right, that doesn't happen. How much more embarrassment do you need before you realize that what is happening, what you're doing, and the day-to-day stuff that you're doing isn't working properly, right? And that's why I'm going to this far extent of being like captaincy, because that's fucking embarrassing. That is like punching the balls below the belt shit that wouldn't happen normally. But like, how many more times are we going to be trotted out and have a lackluster effort like last night and get blown the fuck out?
In this season, a week feels like it's 2 weeks. It's really not that long ago that the Flames were playing better. So,
how does it?
Hold on here. I have a stat for you. They are since the Muzzin flip. They are 6-8, and they have allowed 4 or more goals on. I'm just going to count this out here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times in 14 games.
Yeah.
And I would love to look at, I haven't had a chance to do this, but I believe that it was the first time, last night was the first time in at least 6 games that they've had over 10 shots in the first half of the first period. I want to say around 5 or 6 times.
I mean, you said 6 and 8 in that time span. I mean, we're talking here like it's 2 and 12 or something worse. You know what I mean? I know it's not a winning record, but this happened with the Canucks too. Like, everybody was like, the sky is falling, and then a week goes by and it's a totally different feeling, right?
How does it feel being on the other side? I'm going through this, and you're back up. You're on a upward trajectory. How does it feel? Does it feel good? Because it feels like
relief.
shit.
It's not good. If it's improving, it's only relief. It's not good unless the winning percentage says they're going to make the playoffs. It's not that good.
No.
It's not much to be happy about.
No.
Yeah, I guess to me, it's just, I mean, since like I did the stats since the Bill Peters change, Jeff Ward, that 8-game winning streak that they had after the switch. They are 17-17. They were a 500 hockey team. Since the Flames got blown up by the Oilers in the goalie fight game, they're a 500 hockey team. They have been mediocre for a really long time, and it's really hard. I think it's hard for Flame fans to say that this doesn't feel to me like this is a blip. This feels to me like this is more than a trend. This is where we're at.
It's how you're losing.
Yeah, and it's how you're losing. And as Pat Steinberg said last night, they're becoming the Minnesota Wild, which is a middling organization with no identity. And you're not getting like, if you sit here, you're not going to get a top 10 pick, which, by the way, they gave up for Travis Hamonic. This team would be much better with a Noah. Come on, Noah Dobson would be pretty good enough, and then you're not good enough to get anything done in the playoffs. So that's a terrible place to be in.
It's where a lot of teams are.
Yeah, I think that's the worry about the Canucks too, because of the cap constraints that they're in. So I don't know. I think I don't think they're on the edge of making any like nuclear changes, whether that be coach, GM, or captaincy. But I do think that they have to be looking at a trade here, even if it's not a big blockbuster one, but one that whether it's Sam Bennett, whether it's I don't know who else you could move to help things out. But they need to do something to wake this team up, because it's been, let's see, they got the win on Monday versus the Canucks, but were outplayed. Then the Canucks beat them on Wednesday. Then they got up. Then they lost to the Oilers and then got destroyed last night. Like, it's just and even before that, as the Flames have left their fans wanting and expecting more because of all that. It's been basically 2 weeks of it. And in such a short season, you cannot have 2 weeks of lackluster, give a shit attitude and expect to be able to make the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, even the wins haven't felt good. Like, honestly, it's just been like, oh, thank God for Markey. And that's the problem. Then that's what everybody's seeing, is that the process isn't there. The little things aren't being done properly, aren't being done well, and they're just relying on Markey. And when Markey's not playing well, you see what the fuck happens.
Maybe what's missing. This is the one what's worse, missing the playoffs in an all-Canadian division or losing to the Leafs in the first round in the playoffs?
It's just trolling, though.
That's trolling.
Well, I mean,
that's trolling.
That's a question for Ottawa Senators fans, I think. Other than that, nobody's lost to the Leafs in the playoffs in 16 years? 17?
So about these Canucks, hey guys?
Troll, Tyler.
Devin's going to leave here.
Well done, Tyler. Well done.
Well done.
I mean, the Ottawa Senators fans have just nightmares, about facing the Leafs in the playoffs. But for everybody else, anyway, we brought up Sam Bennett. Just wanted to, he was benched for third period plus a bit of the second period there on Friday night. I mean, something's got to happen with him. Should there not?
As in a trade?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's wanted a trade. He's asked for one. The fact that everybody around the team that is in the media is saying that there's something that is going to happen and that is being pushed. So you got to expect that him and potentially someone else. I would think that there would be somebody significant. Honestly, him and somebody significant, a Monahan, a Backlund, even though I feel like Backlund, he kind of is a bit of the backbone to this team, because when he's going, we're playing well. But yeah, Ty, you're 100% right, man.
Well, we saw with Dubois, right? Like, when he got benched by Torts, it wasn't long before the move was made. I mean, management looked at that and said, we got to get him out of here.
Yeah.
My concern about making trades is that there's going to be reluctance to do it now based on how the Winnipeg situation has gone. I mean, they had to wait for Dubois. He comes in, plays a couple of games, and now he's out injured, and they're probably looking around thinking, why the hell did we make this trade?
And Jack Roslovic has been a revelation in Columbus.
Holy.
Yeah. So
Like-
they would be a lot of reservations there. I think if you're Brad Treliving trying to make a trade across the border right now, because you don't you know you're not going to get immediate help, and then the player falls out of game shape, and then when he is playing again, you're not sure how effective it's going to be. Could be a step backwards for at least in the term of the first month or so following the trade, and the season could be a write-off by that point.
The thing that is interesting to me is they played Connor Mackey a bit. They've tried him out. He was sent back. They played Glenn Gawton last night. They tried him out, and Buddy Ross. It seems to me that they are at least looking and seeing what they have. That if
they
you are
haven't
making
played all over Shillington.
yeah,
There's some sour grapes there, 100%. There's definitely a wedge in between both of them, and Shillington could be a part of that trade too. Because, like I said, I think that he's a good 7-6 defenseman that can come in and out of your lineup. But I thought Nestjov's played pretty damn well. Connor Mackey, they have obviously higher on Connor Mackey than they are on Shillington because he's been in a couple games. So, there's definitely something else I think in the works with a combination of a trade or a straight up trade between anybody in Shillington.
Yeah, could be. It's
Sam Bennett, Oliver Shillington in the second is the new Mason Raymond, Keith Ballard in the second.
Yes, it is. Just swinging for the fences with spare parts.
Yeah.
Look at that moonshot way out here.
Moonshot way out of here.
Try and breathe, Devin. I know you're frustrated. We've all felt this way.
I know. It's funny because, like you said it earlier, Tyler. Like there's a bunch of teams out there that are feeling this way. Like the highs and lows of everything are definitely real. You're on a roller coaster this year.
Yeah, it absolutely has
more
been
dramatic.
Yeah. It's the drama is up there for sure. Anything else on the Flames that we need to get to?
Glenn Gawton came in, and you know what? He didn't play great. Awesome.
His highlight was someone caught him picking his nose on the bench.
Oh yeah.
That's one of the best things that come out of last night for sure. I just think that it's
do we want to see it? Do I want to show it? No, we're not doing it. Nope, we are not doing it. Poor Glenn. Poor Glenn.
You can find it easily enough.
I've been clamoring for getting Glenn Gawton in the lineup for the past year and a bit, but this is kind of a shitty.
That was a shitty time to play him, though.
Oh, totally. Yeah. The fact that he hasn't played in how long? He's jumping right into this shitstorm that is the Flames. So I hope they sent him down today to play against the Marlies here in Calgary. Because that game's this afternoon as well.
Yeah. I mean, he's picking his nose. I mean, it's symbolic of most of the players on the team, so I don't see that anymore. Sorry. That was funny. That was fun. Hero week. So let's switch to the Canucks. We have a poll there as well.
Yep.
And where let's get that poll up. Where are we with the Canucks? Are they back? Are they in the playoffs? Wow, we are tied. That's some good polling there. When we have a tie, you have a poll.
And more than 20.
It's closer than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
So, let's go backwards. We'll start Sean, and I'll go last.
I'm more of an optimist than most Canucks fans. So whenever Devin yells at me for being a pessimist, I always find it hilarious because I end up I'm on the opposite side in most of the discussions I have about the Canucks, and I think they're going to find a way. I think if you look at this division, if they can tread water against the Leafs and the Habs going forwards for the rest of the season, and then win the series versus Flames, Oilers, Jets, and then don't drop too many too many points to Ottawa and get as many points from Ottawa as possible, then they can make the playoffs. So I think they're still going to find a way. I think this division's still wide open to be able to do that. The process is there now for the Canucks. They're no longer playing like a beer league team like they did for the first 2 weeks of this season. And I think it's time to I think they are going to find a way. Especially if the way Demko and Holtby are playing now continues for a significant amount of time, then they're going to be able to find a way.
Yeah, for much of the same points as Sean, it's just simply looking at the standings. If they can stay in front of Ottawa, Calgary, Edmonton, you look at the record, the combined record against those three teams, it's a lot more encouraging. But they're not going to make it unless they find some way to pick up some more points against Toronto and Montreal. We'll see with Winnipeg. I mean, so far it's just a split in the season series there. So if I have that right, so we're not too sure yet on how the Canucks match up against Winnipeg, but I think against Calgary, Edmonton, and Ottawa, clearly the Canucks are doing all right against those teams, and you only have to finish ahead of 3 to be in the playoffs. So although depth and injuries, that's a huge concern all the time as well. If they lose a couple of key pieces, that could be it.
I think that it's so up in the air. If there's another vote there, being I have no fucking idea, that'd be me. Just because of the ups and downs of, the Canucks see it. We're seeing it right now. Right now, it's down in Flames land. So you could definitely see Edmonton drop. You could see Winnipeg drop. You could see potentially even Toronto have a losing streak here. So like there's still so much runway left. It's hard to really tell. I can't. Sean, I'm not going to pick a table. I'm sorry. I'm right down the middle.
That was the reason why I only had it as yes and no, basically. I did because I knew if we gave that middle ground, if we gave that middle ground, I probably would have picked it too. Like I wanted people to make a decision.
Okay, fine. I'll make a decision.
We know Kevin would have picked the middle ground.
I'll make a decision, and I say that they're out of the playoffs. I don't think they'll make it.
Unfortunately, I am with Devin on this. I just think that I think it's close. I think it's possible they could pass Calgary. I think that's I'll hear that argument. I think it'll be. I am very interested in this Oilers Canucks 2-game series because I think that this will be really fascinating to me. The Oilers are hot, but at the same time, there's an interesting conversation around depth between these two teams that I may say it suggests the Canucks are a little bit stronger than the Oilers out on that. I know that there's some Oiler fans that are about to throw some eggs at me here, but that's to be honest with you, I mean, the Flames made Smith and Koskinen look like Vezina Trophy winners, really. And I don't know if they are. I don't think the Oilers were awesome last night. They were fine. So I think that's going to be interesting. But I do think that the team in Montreal, I think that they have enough runway that they can get in. We'll see. I think they're still good. And I think Winnipeg is better than people are giving them credit for. Do you know that Lenoir Reposois has never allowed a goal in Rogers Arena?
No, heard that.
Including as an Edmonton Oiler. Yeah. 88 shots, no goals. And he's been a pleasant
that is one of those like absolute stupid random facts.
Thank you.
It's hilarious.
But the Jets seem to find ways to win hockey games that are just, it's weird, but they do it. I think that they could get close. I think to me, what it might come down to is the Oilers and Canucks and how they do ultimately in that series. Maybe if we want to get right down to it, that might be the difference. Because I don't think the Oilers are as good as, I don't think the Oilers are necessarily a top 3 team, but I think they're better than the Flames for sure right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think to date, from what we've seen, I think the Oilers are a top 3 team. But with them, it's like their defensive play just hangs by a thread. You just never know when all of that's going to drop off. And it turns over into just the Edmontoning, as the phrase I use, where it's just sloppy play in their own end, giving the puck away. We've seen a lot of that with the Canucks this year, but historically with the Oilers, they can put together defensive play decently for a few games, and then it kind of regresses back to the old way again. So, for a Canucks fan, hopefully that occurs when Edmonton comes to Vancouver. But we'll see. That will be very. You're right, Kevin. That will be very indicative of how the rest of the season goes for the Canucks here. If they don't look competitive against Edmonton, I don't know. It's going to be hard to see a path into the playoffs.
I mean, the one nice thing too is I think the Lotto line is playing a lot better. And I didn't think that they were horrible, but like I wasn't like for Pettersson, I wasn't like, oh my gosh, this guy is really struggling. I think he's still due for a big night. Like I'm gonna say this. I think he's due for a Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews night. I think it is that close to coming. I really do.
I disagree, Kevin. I think he's due for a Petey night.
Well, oh gosh. Did everyone else understand what I was saying?
You can't compare the two because then Canucks fans are like, well, what about Petey? Ooh,
yeah. Look, this is simple. He needs to shoot the damn puck if that's going to happen.
He does. That is the one thing. Jeez. He does need to shoot the puck. I don't know if it's on the power play. I don't know what the issue is. He's not shooting the puck. Yeah. He needs to shoot the damn puck. I don't know if it's because Hughes isn't quite putting it in his wheelhouse to get that one-timer off, because he's got one of the best one-timers in this league.
Yeah.
And he needs to fucking shoot. It frustrates me because that power play should be absolute just firing pucks at the net. And I'm sorry. Petey deserves more credit than he gets from Oilers and Leafs fans. I will fight them on that one, okay?
Oh, he's fired up.
I love it.
Got the protective bear going here now.
Seriously, man. Okay, Petey is in his own right there, Sean, for sure, and he's a great fucking player, but he's not a Matthews or McDavid.
Never said he was. I said he needs to be. He gets lost in the shuffle, and people do not understand that how good he is when he's on his game. They do not.
I will say
the difference, though, as of right now, is he hasn't been on his game this entire year, and Matthews and McDavid have come to play.
They both have played really well. And I know Kevin was starting to lament the fact that we're gonna have to talk about Matthews and 50 goals this year and have to talk about it. No, he deserves that talk. He deserves that talk.
I wasn't going to bring that up, actually. Yeah. By the way, did you know Marner has more points than Matthews? Anyway, but that's a.
Oh man,
where's that faxing?
Proves
right
what true? Proves what?
I hit the wrong thing. What I do think, where I will agree with Sean, is this Pettersson is a marketable star that I do think the NHL is not doing enough to. I think the Canucks are, absolutely, but the NHL is not focusing on Pettersson as a star in this league, as a face of the franchise, face of the league. I think that Pettersson and Hughes, do not think the NHL has done a good enough job on that. At all. I do. That's where I will agree with Sean. I'm not saying I don't know though if we can put him on the level of Matthews and McDavid this year, but in terms of star power,
he hasn't had the peak performances that those two have. McDavid is arguably the best player in the world right now. I'm not saying that he's on the same level as them, but I do think that like this idea that we can't have this discussion and say that he's got the ability and he deserves more praise than he's getting is saying that you can't have this conversation is crap.
It's not about not having the conversation. It's about the fact that he hasn't shown up like they have this year. Everybody on this podcast knows how good Petey is, and when he's on, he's amazing. He's amazing. But this year he hasn't shown it.
Who's the best? Who's the third best forward in this division?
Third best?
Third best.
Draisaitl. Fourth best is Petey.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. Like
fifth best is Marner.
After McDavid, I think you can make arguments of what the rankings are for 2 to 5 there for sure.
Yeah, I just that's where, I mean, I'm not. I do think he's due for some scoring. Yeah. Shifley.
Hold on. The other thing with Petey, the Petey Matthews and McDavid is Petey's younger than them all. They're both of them are 1, 2, 3 years ahead of them in development. So let's wait till he's got 5. He's in his 5th year in the NHL and see what he's going to do.
Yeah. No. Yeah. My big point though. My point is I think that the NHL needs to look at Pettersson and they can do a lot more with this guy than they have in terms of a face of the franchise, face that the NHL fans can look at. That's bigger. Yeah. Big picture.
Yep.
One guy that I do think we do need to talk about, and we're going to put in an award conversation, is Mr. Nails Hoglander, who I would say has been generally the most consistent forward for the Canucks all year. I think that's a fair comment. Is he Rookie of the Year?
He's in the discussion. There's going to be a list of 5 or 6 players that are going to get looks this year with this award. Kirill Kaprizov's going to be right in the mix there. Pius Suter's playing really well for Chicago, and then you've got Norris and Stützle in Ottawa. And then do not dismiss what Ty Smith's doing in New Jersey as well. And then you've got freaking the Chicago goalie, Kevin Lankinen, and then don't write off Shesterkin or just don't write off Shesterkin as well, because I think by the end of the season you're going to look at his stats and you're going to be able to make a big case. With Hoglander, he's definitely going to be in the discussion. He needs to find a way to produce a little bit more to be considered a real hands down favorite, though. And I think he's going to go on a run here pretty soon and put up the points that's going to put him in that discussion. The way he plays just gets me excited because he plays the right way. His motor is high. He doesn't back down, even though he's not the tallest player on the ice. And I love that he's wearing number 36 because the way he plays is a perfect, almost the same way that Jannik Hansen played. Honey Badger don't give a shit. He is a Honey Badger.
It's hard to kind of get a sense of the other Calder Trophy candidates out there with this intra-divisional play, but as far as the North Division goes, I mean, I think the hype around Stützle is a lot higher than it is around Hoglander. So, if it was going to be one of those two at this moment, I think probably Stützle gets the edge there, especially since he's one of the few guys that's really standing out doing much in Ottawa. So,
yeah, there's also Philip Kurashev in Chicago as well, and he's right behind Pius Suter with goals and points. So don't sleep on him either. But as far as Hoglander goes, it's anybody's race right now. No one's really stood out to be hands above everybody else. Maybe Kaprizov right at the very beginning because he had such a hot start, but he's kind of cooled off a little bit, and it also doesn't help that Minnesota hasn't played as many games as everybody else as well.
As far as Hoglander and not being afraid out there, I mean, seeing him on the bench with a little smirk after the brouhaha with Forbort there the other night, that was noteworthy for me. Didn't seem like he was too concerned with mucking it up out there, and of course the whole team responded. So maybe that was a good.
Yeah, he seems to have certainly captured. He has that. Back to the Flames, he has that give a shit meter that I think the team is behind, and that whole penalty situation was a bit ridiculous for sure. I think that also helped the Canucks Twitter react the way that it did because of the way that was called. That didn't help, but he has such a passion, and we remember when we were watching him when he was coming up and the goals he scored in Europe. Once he gets that confidence, that NHL confidence that he's able to do that kind of stuff, it's going to be really scary what he will do. So
you're seeing some of that confidence. He's trying to make some nice dangles and some nice dekes, but what makes me excited about him, and it's when Quinn Hughes is on his game, it's the same thing. They don't look to make the big fancy play first. They always look at the simple play, and they make sure that they make that play. And when they do that enough, then the play for the big fancy deke or using their skill to do something exciting opens up for them. And the more simple plays Hoglander makes while still working his ass off like he does, it's going to be better for him long term, and those opportunities are going to open up for him.
Is Chris? I'm trying to look this up. Is Chris Driedger a rookie?
No, I think he's been around for so long. I think he may be still considered a rookie based off of
let me reword that
per season, but he won't be Calder eligible. I don't.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's got 23 NHL games under his belt right now, from what I can see. But anyway, he's been playing really well. I was just curious because I'm like, is he in there? I wasn't sure. But that's a whole other story. That's a good story in Florida for sure. But yeah, I think Hoglander is really excited. This game tonight between the Jets and the Canucks, I think will be one of the funner games that we've had. It's been really stale overall. There's not been a lot of push, or as Eric Francis viewed, old school. And I think tonight we might get some old school. We might hopefully get a little bit of just a bit of more snarl, like Devin and Sean snarl. We need some Devin and Sean arguing type of snarl here.
Well, the whole thing coming into this season with just playing up the same, as far as the North Division goes, there's 7 teams playing each other the entire year, multiple times in a row, and we were hoping and wanting all of this snarl, like you're talking about, Kev, a little bit of fuck you attitude. And I really haven't seen too much of it, and I really hope that it does pick up here, and I think it will, especially when you start pushing for the playoffs instead of trying to seed each other as of right now. So I hope so, and especially if stuff carries over between what happened with Hoglander and Fourboard last game. That'll be good.
Well, we can deny it all we want. I think the lack of snarl has a lot to do with the lack of fans.
I agree.
It's just not the same. I think when you get a Calgary Edmonton matchup and you get the fans going bonkers, and it's an 8:00 start with everybody a little more fired up for the game, let's say, I think it has an effect, and that's lacking. But yes, as we get closer to the playoffs and the games mean more. We saw in the bubble there was no lack of bite because it was very meaningful hockey. Everything was so important, and right now it's just not the same urgency.
Yeah, I do think all it's going to take is one little spark, especially after how the game ended last on Friday. I think we are going to see something like that. Looks like Dubois is back. He's going to play the left wing with Scheifele and Wheeler. It looks like. I believe. So that's going to be tough. It looks like Hellebuck's going back in. So Canucks weren't able to capitalize on having a backup last game. They definitely need. This is a game they need to find a way to get a good result out of. If they're going to claw back, like I hope and I think they can. They need to play with that urgency. They need to play. They all need to play like Niels Hoglander. They all need to have that to climb the opponent's back to get the puck urgency. And if they do, I think they are going to get the result that they want. especially if the Lotto line can build on the momentum they've built up throughout this past few games. Yes, it was. I think that I thought they deserved a better result than they got on Friday versus the Jets. I thought they were the better team. They just ran into a goalie who seemed to have their number, unfortunately, and the fact that they only gave up one goal and then an empty netter says a lot about how stingy they've become defensively. So if they can keep the structure that they've had for the past, I'd say week, they've had that week, and then hopefully we'll see the results. And again, I want to see that tenacity that Hoglander is playing with everywhere. I want to see Jake Virtanen doing that. If Jake Virtanen can do that, all this talk about him needing to be traded will go away, because he'll become. Like he doesn't have to make the big hit. He doesn't have to be the power forward that we all thought he could be. All he has to do is be an absolute dick out there. He needs to be what Matthew Tkachuk is to get out there. And I don't know if he has it in him, but if he does, that'd be amazing. But even if he goes at like 70% of what Tkachuk's dick level is. I don't know if that sounds like a horrible way of saying it. But,
wow, that is an odd way of. That was an odd choice of words.
Oh, we have new material for the opening.
That's a new throw in the opening. I'm clipping that.
Oh no!
Oh my god! If they can find a way to play with that tenacity going forwards, then they're at the very least it's going to be entertaining to watch for the rest of the season.
Friday was not a discouraging loss like we've seen in a lot of other cases this season. I mean, you can just look at Brossoit and say, the guy was on fire that night. Now tonight, though, I'm curious: is somebody going to go and challenge Forward? And if so, who?
Myers.
Yeah.
I don't think there's many other candidates on the Canucks team that can really do that. Yes, Kevin.
Would this not be a time? I know that would this not be a time for Mr. Virtanen to do that? If there was anyone that could do it, for the Canucks team, that this would be the time to challenge. I'm not saying he needs to win, but wouldn't it be great if it was Virtanen?
The whole thing with Virtanen is that that's his big body being a power forward. You've been talking about this for years. And you talk about trying to put lipstick on a fucking pig. There you go. Really.
Clip it.
Wheeler and JT Miller, that would be something. Yeah, I mean, Tyler Myers would be kind of the obvious candidate there. I would be impressed if somebody like a Bo Horvat went and took him on, but that's probably not as likely. But if the feeling in the dressing room is anything close to how the Twitter feeling is about how that went the other night, somebody's got to step up and make the guy answer for what happened there.
If he's in the lineup, big Zach McEwen.
Yeah, that's something. Let's note that for later on here when we see the warm up. I guess.
I want Zach McEwen in over Louis Eriksson. Louis Eriksson played like absolute shit last game.
Oh, yeah.
That was like he had a couple absolute just brutal giveaways. You need and if this is a true meritocracy, as most of this lineup has proven to be this year, it's time to sit him again, and it's time to see Zach McEwen in there, and if he can go in and do what we're asking to go after Forward, that'd be fucking fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, if your job is to do the little things right, play well defensively, get the puck out, penalty kill, and all that, and you're struggling with that, then you don't have a reason to be playing. So that's kind of where it's at with Louis Eriksson. I mean, it's been a bit of a struggle, but you got these other guys, get them in there.
Well, yeah, I think that if Vancouver's going to be successful tonight, it's going to be the bottom six that is going to have to outplay the other bottom six, and especially with having Lowry and Kopp on the same line again. Because if Dubois is in, then Kopp will drop down to that Lowry line, and that's pretty scary third line there.
By the way, just for a fun fact, since the Holtby Miller incident on February 6th, the Canucks have not allowed more than 3 goals in regulation in 6 straight games. The overtime goal the fourth goal on Monday was in overtime.
Yeah.
So, not bad. And in 3 of those games, they've allowed less than 3. So you're seeing a change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why Tyler said it wasn't as deflating a loss as it could have been on Friday, because the process was still there. I still think they deserved a better outcome than they did. But we got a comment talking about a good Jets Canucks fight, Peluso and Sabiza. I don't think you need the volume on this, but you can just see the good fight here.
Yeah, for everybody who's listening, Peluso is just giving it to Sabiza. Oh my God, bunch of right hands, and outright winner is Peluso there. Yeah. Good God.
Well, this is when the linesman actually let them fight. That's I know my friends are frustrated with that too, seeing the fights broken up so often. But that's kind of another discussion, I guess. Yeah, I was just going to make the point. It was 2-0 loss. I mean, one was an empty netter, and the other one was just a tough break. I mean, it does happen sometimes where the defenseman, gets the shot through block, caught flat-footed, can't catch up. I mean, there was no chance Edler was going to catch Scheifele, and he's a goal scorer. So, I mean, that's the game right there, and just the inability to beat Brossoit. But it wasn't a terrible performance.
Yeah. Just because this question's been asked a couple of times here, I'm curious which things will be fired first. He suggested Ward or Julian. Before we get on to any other things, I would guess Ward.
Right now, Ward. I think Ward's got the hotter seat out of everyone. I don't think the Habs are in the toilet right now or falling back to earth like a lot of people are. I think they're just in a bit of a lull in their season. The process is still there, and I think they're due for another good run here coming up soon.
To me, the only one really on the hot seat is Jeff Ward. Paul Maurice, I don't see it. There's not going to be a change in Toronto or Ottawa, and frankly, in Montreal, there won't be a change there either because you have to be a French Canadian apparently to be the coach of the Habs, and stint number 2 was Claude Julien.
Well, you have to speak French, and Kirk Muller's the associate coach there, and he's got the history with that franchise. Yeah. If they do decide to make a change, they've got the replacement in there right now. They played well for him in the bubble last year.
Yes,
when Julien had his health scare. But I said I don't think the seat in Montreal is hot at all right now, or at least it shouldn't be.
No, I think it's going to be Travis Green. I think he's going to go first, easily.
All right, hot take.
Done. No, it's Jeff Ward through and through. There's no other scenario that I could see happening.
Anything else with the Canucks? Did we like the uniforms? And I'm not.
You had to do it. Oh, jeez.
It's not even the right label.
I know, but I saw a Sprite. I'm like, I gotta just drink a Sprite just to make a Kevin Humor joke. I really like them. I thought they looked a lot better on TV than they did in picture. I'm
gonna take the opposite view on that. When the jerseys were first announced and revealed, and you got the nice, crisp, clear photos, looking at them up close, and worn by certain models, and it's like, oh, this ain't bad. But yeah, on TV, I'm just like, whoa, it's a little bit of a shock to the eyes getting used to that. Although, and Shorty pointed it out, at least the numbers are readable.
Yeah, very much so.
I love them. I think they're great. I like basically all the reverse retros. I really enjoyed having them trotted out. Even Dallas's, I fucking love those. But these ones,
the reverse retros.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
The Dallas's reverse retros are all white. I don't know if you guys are talking about the neon ones. Those are just their thirds.
Well, their third is fantastic. I fucking love it.
No, they're not. No. I mean, are we in
Sorry, Kevin.
Are we in a roller skating rink? Like, what the hell is that? Yeah.
Well, again, Kevin hates fun.
Well, then, Kevin, what do you think about the gold helmets from Vegas?
Oh, those are terrible.
Oh, brutal, yeah.
Those are ugly.
Yeah.
My God.
Sean?
Like I would demand a trade just if I had to wear that damn thing. I was like, I'm not wearing this.
I love the idea. I think the execution's a little off. I'll take them over those mustard yellow gold jerseys
what the hell
that the Knights have.
Those red jerseys the Knights wore during the all-day Lake Tahoe game. I love those. I really love those.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, now that we're on that one, could you imagine that, like, especially during the day, that with the powdered blue Nordiques jerseys instead of them being white, the Avs jerseys being white.
That would have been fun. That'd
been fantastic. Like you've taken this like amazing chance, and yes, you can try and dunk on the NHL for not understanding what sun does. But I think the weather was a few degrees warmer than they expected, and that's why the ice fell apart, was the sun and the weather being warmer than expected. But they're trying something fun there. Why don't you try to recreate how amazing that Detroit Toronto Winter Classic at the Big House looked when you had red versus blue on with all that snow in the background? There's enough snow in the background at Tahoe that the white jerseys, as sharp as those white jerseys are, I want to see them try and do that. They had freaking Columbus versus Nashville, no white jerseys. It looked great, even though Nashville's mustard yellow jerseys are iffy. It looked so much better than having white jerseys on the white ice.
I'm going to be. I know that there's a lot of people that will disagree with me on this, but I know that yes, it was a tough day. But I'm with Sean. I thought that it looked beautiful out there, and I actually think that this is something that the NHL should look at going forward. I really do. I think that they should look at a Lake Louise and a Whistler and some of these places. It just looks picturesque, and it's sort of the way that we grew up playing hockey in the backyard.
Some people did.
Some people. Well, it takes me back to my childhood.
Yeah,
and I matter the most. But to me, it's a pretty picturesque thing that like we crap on the NHL when they don't do anything. When they try something, we crap on the NHL. I give them a credit. Like, this has an opportunity to work.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I said, Louise would be amazing if they can figure out how to actually be able to sponsor shit, because apparently that was the big issue. Federal government and the National Parks Board wasn't going to allow them to do any sponsors. Whistler would be amazing. Kevin, like I said, Whistler would be amazing. There's other spots throughout North America that would be awesome. Anything in the Appalachian Mountains down out east would be fun. Find maybe you could find something in fucking Northern Ontario, on the Canadian Shield.
Yeah, my vote would be for Whistler with and the Kraken there, but it would be nice to see this done in Canada again. I think it was pointed out by John Shannon on Twitter too that the absence of fans allowed for better camera placement. It was much easier to watch it because of that. The games in the football stadiums have been really difficult to watch. Do you remember the outdoor game at the World Juniors in Buffalo a few years ago? I mean, the camera angle for that was brutal. Like, it was just so hard watching that. And I think as far as the stadium games go, when you've seen one, you've seen them all. The ones in a couple of the historic baseball stadiums, Wrigley Field and Fenway Park in particular, looked cool because they're not just a typical rectangle shape, and then the fans way away from the rink. The ones in California, I thought were a little bit of a gimmick, but even at Dodger Stadium there, that was quite something as well. But this definitely, if you're going to have a made-for-TV event, this is the one that the type of event I think that's worth pursuing again. It's just a shame that the sun created so much trouble for them that they were forced to finish the game yesterday at night, and now they're going to be playing another night game here today to finish off the weekend. So you'll lose those views. So that part of it's disappointing, but I think it was a worthwhile effort.
Yeah,
I was
Hey, let me talk for the fuck's sakes. Jesus. You took my point about Lake Louise and started talking about Lake Louise and how the sponsorships weren't working. So let me have this. Okay, they another good spot would be Parliament Hill. I know they've talked about that as well.
Yeah,
I think that'd be a beautiful scene.
Is it the National Mall in Washington D.C. or whatever that thing's called?
I'm not familiar with that.
Oh yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. All right,
Anyway,
Devin, you can continue to go.
Oh, God, Hudson's Bay. That'd be kind of cool. I guess it probably wouldn't be that scenic. But yeah, it is.
Let's put it in none of it.
We'll have
Get some.
no,
Get some.
I don't know.
all right,
But,
here.
I do like the idea of, like, if you're gonna do an outdoor games, start getting creative like this and create made for TV events. Going forwards, I would love, like, I know you're not gonna be able to have like 60, 70,000, even 20,000, 16, 20,000 people like you would in an arena, but I still would love to see, and I think this will come on something that Kevin will jump head first into, providing giveaway tickets to these games where you can have 5,000-10,000 people, but they all go towards frontline workers going forwards. I think that would be amazing. You can make this a made for TV event, sell the sponsorships to make it worthwhile for the to do it, and then like I said, give away the tickets to these frontline workers who deserve it.
Yeah, I think you could do this with a small crowd, like Sean said, in the upwards of 10,000, just enough where the seating is low still, where you're going to get the views. I don't know if anybody here sort of remembers back to when the BC Place stadium renovation was happening, and they played it a temporary setup at Hastings Park. Well, it was small enough, and that the structure was low enough that you could still see the North Shore Mountains. You could still see the roller coaster there at Playland next door, and it made for quite the atmosphere to go and watch some football or some soccer. But and I think that accommodated about 27,000. But that was not doing an outdoor experience at the expense of the atmosphere.
It looked really good, and separate topic. That may be a place that the Lions need to reconsider, but that's a whole other separate topic. My idea. This is my thing. Canucks Kraken home and home. They do play at not at CenturyLink, but at Safeco, the baseball stadium in Seattle. You do a whole craft beer thing. You do add a whole festival when fans can come back and everybody can start getting together. You do something like that, and then you bring it up here to Whistler, and just.
Yeah, I think if you were to do one in Seattle, you'd have to do it in the baseball stadium because you can retract the roof.
Yeah. That's my thought anyway. That would be a great first home and home. Devin, did you have anything to add to?
No. I want to give props to Nick Bruce for saying Central Park, New York. I think that'd be fantastic. I mean, the logistics of that, though, security wise, might be a bit hard. That'd be the only thing. But yeah, that's a good idea, Nick.
That would be
great. Yeah. So let's just quickly go through some other NHL stuff here. Sidney Crosby played his one. Can you believe Sidney Crosby's played 1,000 games in the National Hockey Leagues? Man, I'm young. I'm still a very young man. We have not. Yeah. But last night, it's one. I think first of all, it's so sad that this guy did not get a standing ovation from the Pittsburgh fans for his 1,000th game because he deserved it. He really did, and I think that is really sad.
Well, they're definitely going to make sure that they have a celebration of that with everyone in the stadium when that's allowed.
Yeah. So we do have another poll question, our third poll question. Where does Sidney Crosby rank in the 1,000th game? Where does he rank all time? Top 5, top 10, top 20. We'll start Tyler this time. Where would you go on this?
Yeah, I think top 5 is reasonable. Top 3 is pretty tough discussion when you have Gretzky, Lemieux, and then I think a lot of the older crowd would want to go Bobby Orr in that group. So, and then there's other names that you can consider. But I think top 5 is a very credible discussion to have when it comes to Sidney Crosby. And he's still got lots more in the tank as far as I can see. So congratulations, Sidney, on 1,000 games. And I don't know if you guys caught some of the tribute videos and such. Evgeny Malkin did a really nice one, and I was joking around about he's not Sid the Kid anymore, you old man, and such. So he's giving him the gears there. And then I think there was another one where we heard from some former teammates of his, including Billy Guerin. And when Billy came up, you could just tell how meaningful Guerin was for Sidney in the early days. Both him and Pascal Dupuis. I don't think there were any two veterans in that time that Crosby was closer to than them. So it was nice to see Sid, trying to not tear up. It's a guy that doesn't show much emotion, and we saw a little there. So once again, well done, Sidney.
Sean?
Yeah, he doesn't quite break the top 3. The top 3 for me is Gretzky, Lemieux, and Bobby Orr. Top 5, I think, makes a lot of sense. There's different players you can argue about. I'm all ears for Nick Lidstrom arguments in the top 5. I don't quite have him there, but I'm all ears for that. I think he's the second best defenseman to ever play the game. 7 Norris trophies over his time, but so don't slander Nick Lidstrom in my presence, but for Sidney Crosby, I do think top 5 is the right spot for him. He's the old. If he played in a different era with less teams, and he would have won a few more cups. So I think top 5 makes a lot of sense.
Oh, guys. You're forgetting about probably the most iconic hockey player of all time, Gordie Howe. I have him in my Twitter handle. 6 Art Rosses. He had 7 Hart trophies, and he's not even mentioned. What the fuck?
It's too far back, I guess.
Christ.
Recency bias.
You haven't heard from me yet, though. To be fair. I'm just going to point something out there. I have not said anything yet.
Gordy's in the top 5 discussion for sure.
Are you done talking?
Never.
Top 5 for sure. That's what I picked. You could have arguments from Lidstrom or Lemieux. Gretzky's obviously up there too. So that top 5 for sure. But don't forget about Gordie Howe.
My top 5 are Gretzky, Howe, or Lemieux, Crosby, and then just under him is Ovi, Lidstrom, and Jágr. So yes, Crosby's in the top 5. I can't put him ahead of Mario. I just think Mario was the most talented player to ever play this game when he was on. Yep. I'm talking now.
Yeah, I'd be that combination of size and puck handling. Whoa.
Oh, that is like when he was on and when he was at his capabilities, he was unstoppable. Virtually unstoppable. The second would be Bobby Orr. Gretzky was a smarter player than Mario Lemieux, but Mario was more talented. That's to be. I can't put Crosby ahead of Mario, but I do think he's a top 5 player, and I think with OV, I think that conversation needs to happen as well. If we are going to put him as the greatest goal scorer that ever played the game, he has to be in a top. In my mind, he needs to be in top 10, and so does Lidstrom. I agree. Like Lidstrom is the second best to ever play. Like he was better than Bork and Coffey, in my mind.
Defenseman, that is, yes.
Yeah. So I just want to also 3 other quick things here. Cassie Campbell-Pascal got some heat this Friday again, unfortunately, for her commentary for the Oilers Flames broadcast. I'm one that likes her. I think that she brings a lot to the game, and I think that people have been saying that she's not a fit. She's been actually doing this for well over at least 10 to 15 years. She's been in this game most of her life. She knows more about hockey on her pinky than most of us will know in our lifetime. I just think these comments are ridiculous, and I think it's one of these things that is really sad when we talk. I'm not trying to get super political here when we talk about hockey culture. I really hate the way that people have talked about her. The criticism that she's a homer is, I think, I'll say is a valid one, but Louis DeBrusk last night, for the love of God, was trying to make sure that that Oiler call was being reversed, and nobody's talking about DeBrusk being a homer. Kevin Quinn couldn't remember a Flames name half the time when he was calling a Flames Oilers game, and nobody's complaining about that. There are homers in every broadcast. Like that, the comments on Campbell Pascal, I wanted to address that because I feel it's ridiculous.
Sean Garrett.
Yeah, just a couple quick comments on that. I mean, in other sports, we get the same issues as well. Baseball, especially, because there's so many games with the people you're used to hearing, and then you get some other people, and it's a shock to the ears because it's not what you're used to hearing. And then in the case of Cassie, it doesn't matter how knowledgeable she is. I think the reality is when it's as far as something you're not used to hearing, I mean, it's a woman too, right? So it's a big change for people, and there's a lot of people that don't like change. And I don't think it's anything personal against Cassie. I think it's just they would rather have something they're more used to hearing on the broadcast. And then in the case of Friday night, where there was only the one telecast offered to viewers, that sort of adds additional frustration. If you're an Oilers fan and you're watching TELUS Flames hockey on Sportsnet, it just people are going to push back against that, and I don't see that changing over the long term.
It's all about tradition, really. You're used to hearing a male voice, and it is nothing against her because I like her. I think that she does a very good job color commentating. I mean, it's hard because of that she is a woman, and it's just hockey is so traditional, and I applaud her trailblazing through kind of all the bullshit of social media, getting shit on as much as she has. Love the fact that she's still doing what she's doing, even though I'm sure she's still hearing it. And it's just, it's all about preference, but it's one of those things where that change needs to happen. And it has to happen because hockey is for everybody.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of Cassie Campbell as a color analyst. I love her as a panel intermission analyst. I think that's where she shines more than anything else. Same thing with Kelly Erdő. But I'm not a fan of any of the. I don't think we really have a good color commentator available to us on Sportsnet and Rogers. We don't. Craig Simpson leaves a lot to be desired for me. Louis DeBrusk leaves a lot to be desired. John Garrett's hilarious, but he's a Canucks homer. Like, you can't put him on a national broadcast and expect people to be happy with his analyst side. But I don't like the options that we have. I think Cassie does an admirable job doing what she does. She's not my cup of tea, and it's more just I find she overtakes the conversation during the play sometimes, as opposed to letting the play-by-play person talk and call the game. But that's my personal opinion. But can we please get Ray Ferraro over? Like, that'd be amazing. Like, he's by far the best color commentator we have in North America doing hockey right now, and it's not even close. But the amount of hate that Cassie gets, unfortunately, is driven by stuff that she has no control over, and driven by stuff that shouldn't be making. You should be able to find a way to look past. I
mean, she's been around so long.
Yeah. So I think one of the part of the issue is that you've got all these people who have perceived biases in doing color. If you've got Canucks games in Vancouver, you've got John Garrett. In Calgary, you've got Cassie, whose husband works for the team. Louis DeBrusk played for the Oilers. Craig Simpson played for the Oilers. It's just there's a lot of perceived bias that a lot of people can't get past, and then they let that just destroy listening to what can be a good call. Like DeBrusk has good games, Cassie has good games, Kelly Rudy has good games. Overall, I don't like their styles as much. I find that they none of them bring the right level of analysts during the game, but it's such a tough job to do, and we shouldn't be shitting on them just for having a bad game here and there. I think it's time. I do think it's time to take a look at how the hockey broadcast is handled, and whether or not you really need a color person that talking as much as they can, because hockey is such a fluid sport. It's so hard to have the time to break a play down properly when the play is still going.
Yeah, I don't really understand where that's come from. I mean, that's the American style of broadcasting. I don't know if the Sportsnet people want it to become more like that, but to me, the color analyst talking during the play should only be if it's an essential reason to talk, such that, something was missed, the play-by-play guy didn't bring up that's important to the play as it's happening, but let it breathe. I mean, Bob Cole had the rule that you do not talk during the play when working with Bob Cole, and that's a lot of what made a Bob Cole game great. I just wanted to clarify earlier. For me, Cassie Campbell, she knows her stuff. I'm not bothered one bit listening to her. It's only once in a while that she does a Canucks game. If I was listening to it on a more regular basis, like if I was in Calgary, I don't know where I would be with that. The point about John Garrett, when he is given a national assignment, he cleans it up. He's never going to be. I mean, he's had playoff assignments when they've needed 5 crews. He's done the Flames a couple of times, if I remember right, in the playoffs. And a couple of years ago, Cassie got a playoff series as well, the Flames Avalanche. So, don't expect her to go away anytime soon. But the other part of this, too, is it's amazing, when you get the certain pairings together. She did a couple of Flames Leafs games there with Chris Cuthbert on the Ontario broadcast. And, the feedback was really good. So some of it is the pairings, right?
It is. And I'm not a fan of John Garrett. Not at all. I think Sean, it's funny you say that Cassie can take over a game, if you will, and overanalyze during the play. I find that John Garrett does that too, and he brings up random stupid shit. And
what he's put ketchup on.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, I understand you're trying to make it fun, and I'm not the fun police, but it's like, where you're here to call a hockey game, and Kelly Rudy does it with Rick Ball. That comfortable camaraderie between them. They're laughing a lot during the play, but I think that's more so for them than it is for everybody else. So it is a fine line to walk, and it's a hard job, and props on them for doing it. But yeah, I think Bob Cole, he said it best. Yeah, don't talk during the play. Talk during in between the whistles, and that's what analysts should do.
Yeah.
One quick thing, Derek Wills mentioned this too, and I think this needs to be a good reminder. This is not easy right now. This is Tyler talked about no fans in the stands affecting the players. I think it's also affecting the announcers and the fact that a lot of times you're not in the rink. So it's tough to really analyze this in a way that you normally are doing this. So there is some huge adjustment going on there, because when I was doing play-by-play last year, I mean, the crowd had an impact on how you're dictating the game. It's part of the narrative. Like, if you listen, one of the strengths of Jim Houston, I think, is the fact that as a play-by-play guy, he understands the context of what we are playing. That's what makes him, I think, so great. And Chris Cuthbert does as well. He has that sense of place. When the fans are there, I think he captures that narrative really well. And I think that's probably a Ray Ferraro strength. With no fans, it's tougher to do that. Very much.
You can't let the atmosphere breathe. How many times have we watched games where they just let the fans carry them home for the last 10, 15 seconds? because the arena is rocking and everyone's cheering because it was a good win. They can't do that with no fans. It is a completely different animal, and especially when you're calling from remotely. How many times have I heard John and John sort of talk about how like, I think they may have gotten away with something there, but unless the back official has called it, but they can't see the back official because of the camera angles, and they have to make that comment.
And then I think there's usually a spotter with them as well. If they are missing something, there's someone else. There's another set of eyes there as well. Mm-hmm. So that makes it really tough. So I think just in terms of that, I think maybe give everybody a break and give them a chance to kind of just do their thing here. This is not easy on anybody at this particular point in time. And but I do agree. I think that there's some examination that needs to be done there for sure. Speaking of TV rights, ESPN, Chris Johnston reported last night that ESPN appears to be in the NHL US TV deal. And he thinks that he at least going to get some of it. Does it the rest NBC? Is the rest Fox? What do we see from the rest of? We'll start with Tyler and then go around there.
Yeah, the speculation with ESPN's been there for a while, particularly because they've been carrying games on ESPN Plus already here the last couple of years. The ESPN, of course, broadcast the World Cup of Hockey in 2016. They've got the commentators and the experience doing it, and I mean the league needs that. They need to be on ESPN to really increase their footprint in the U.S. and maybe not footprint, but just to be higher on the sports fan conscience in the U.S. Being on ESPN is important. It's hard for me to see Fox getting into it. I think it means more to NBC to have hockey, particularly being the Olympic partner. When you consider the overlap with the football season, if NBC is going to be involved in carrying games only on their main network, then they don't have as many conflicts on Sundays. They've got Sunday afternoons open. They carry football in the evening, whereas Fox has the afternoons kind of tied up. The other thing for Fox too is the baseball playoffs in October really fills their schedule. So there's some challenges there for Fox to carry it that are maybe less challenging for NBC and ESPN. So I see those two going forward, but in what kind of a split, no idea.
I wouldn't be surprised if we see a three-way, three partners, Fox, NBC, and ESPN. I think the NHL is wanting to spread its footprint and find a way to get into more households, and the best way to do that would be to have a split of it. So I don't see NBC losing it at all. I think they're going to be part of this. Whatever happens, I think they're going to be part of it. Getting ESPN and ABC back on would be fantastic for the NHL. And then I think if Fox wants in, I think they're going to be able to get some games, but I don't think they're going to be. I think they'll probably be a minor. The third part, the smallest of the three in terms of that.
Yeah, I think that ESPN will probably take over overall. Really remains to be seen, obviously, but I just think that it'll be. I'm just curious on how this is all going to break down. I don't have much intel on this, so I just think that ESPN probably will take over, just in considering that they have had a couple of games or a few games here, especially this year. They've had a couple for sure. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was ESPN.
I think 2 to 3 different type of personalities handling hockey would create a 2 to 3 different types of audiences that you can invite in. I think an ESPN style, supposed to an NBC style, would be different than a Fox style. But I think that you can attract all three in a very different way. So I'm open-minded to that. I think it's very, very interesting, that idea. And
Fox has their brand all over numerous regional sports packages for hockey in the U.S. So there's definitely a lot of talent and capacity to draw on if they wanted to make a run at some national rates.
Yeah, for sure. The one that anything else we wanted to bring up? Did I miss anything on our little list here?
Oh no, I think we had a pretty thorough talk today.
The one thing I just wanted to bring up, we're approaching 2 weeks. If you haven't had a chance, we did a deep dive into the end of TSN 1040 a couple Tuesdays ago. And I know we are the hockey podcast, but I do think that we brought this up during that podcast, and I want to bring this up again. Bell took a huge subsidy and still laid off a bunch of people. And the House of Commons has convened, and there's been no talk about it. There's been no pressure put on Bell there's been 2 MPs that have done it, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh and a Manitoba NDP. I want to say, I don't know if it was an MLA or an MVP that have asked the federal government to look at this. I do think that this is an issue that we need to look at. It affected a lot of jobs. It affects a lot of future, not only in sports journalism, but I would argue in news journalism and local journalism. So I do think I'm just going to encourage everyone to contact your MP, your MLA, and ask some questions about this, because I do think that this is an important topic that cannot be buried. This is a multi-billion-dollar corporate company that did something that was a poor firing, was poorly handled, and the optics don't look good. And I do think that us as a public have a right to ask some questions. So I'm just bringing that up, that we need to do that again.
Yeah, if you have any concerns, just find a way to express them to the right authorities, and Kevin's right, and this was a federal subsidy that you should be writing to your MP for, and even your MLA. Like let's put the gears to everyone in government to find out what the fuck happened, because I think it was I'm still not over it. I'm still annoyed and pissed off that the one show that I listen to regularly is gone because of stupid shit. So if we can, the governing people are there to represent us, and we can do a big enough stink in terms of writing in and making a big enough stink about asking what happened and why they weren't able to keep these jobs afloat, then they'll have to answer to it.
Here.
Yeah.
So next week, Wednesday, we will be our midweek intermission. We have the Leafs and the Flames that will be playing their final of their 2-game series. We're going to recap that game, and we are going to have a couple of special guests from Canucks Central at noon. Sportsnet 650. Bick Nazar, Jamie Dodd will both be joining us. We are very excited about that. We're going to do some deep dive into the Canucks. Lots to talk about with them. So we're really excited to have them on. It's going to be a great midweek intermission. So join us for that. Meanwhile, how do we follow everyone?
I am Bearded Canucks 03 on Twitter.
I'm on Twitter at TNoble, TNOBLE.
I'm at Gordhouse09 on Twitter.
I'm Schneidz is SCHNEIDZ. I am KEVOLE. Podcast_hockey on Twitter, Facebook.com, The Hockey Podcast, YouTube.com, The Hockey Podcast, as well as subscribe to wherever our podcast is. Tell your friends about us. Love the comments today. Didn't get to everything, and did Tyler just leave? Where did Tyler go? Anyway, we will talk to you all very soon. I think that was a hit from Tyler. We better go. So bye for now.